Hello. Hello. Hello, 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 hello. And welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to Natcat. Natcat, 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 Natcat. Whispers. ASMR. I hope you are doing well. I hope you are doing well. And today, I'll be reading some article called The Meaning of Life, according to different philosophies. Thank you, Yanet Mott, for suggesting some philosophy facts. As always, drop a comment if you have any topics you'd like to suggest. Now this is a little bit long, so I want to dive right in. So please put your phone down, and relax and hang out with me and enjoy. Okay, so the article starts out by saying, can the meaning of life be told in a word? Maybe it is naive, but there's nothing wrong with wanting a simple answer to an apparently simple question. Why live? And then they talk about the most prominent philosophies that tackled this question over the past 5,000 years. All philosophies on the meaning of life seem to fall into one of four groups. One. Life has objective meaning. 2. Life has subjective meaning. 3. Life has no meaning. Or 4. Life has supernatural, unexplained meaning. So let's dive in. The first one listed is natural pantheism. And it dates back to prehistoric times. Pantheism is the belief that God is in everything, that all things, those first two were pretty simple to comprehend. Yeah, natural pantheism. God is in everything. Theism. There is a God. One or many. Next is Taoism. Circa the 5th century BC. Taoism offers people a painless way of finding life's meaning through Wu Wei, Wu Wei, Wu Wei. Action without intention or naturalness. Such action leads to finding the Tao, which is the way. And yet, the way cannot be understood through any explanation or action. The Tao reveals itself only when a person simply is. The Tao Te Ching, aka Tao Te Ching, by Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, is the primary source on Taoism, and Lao Tzu lived circa the 6th to the 4th century BC. Okay, that one is interesting. Yeah, it's interesting because you just live the way, but the way cannot be understood through any explanation or action. All you can do is just be. I like that. The next one is determinism, circa 6th century BC. Determinism is the idea that all events happen as a result of previously existing causes. Since nothing can be changed in a predetermined world, a person cannot have free will. Okay, the meaning of life is there is one, is also predetermined, and we cannot do anything to understand it. The idea of determinism is ancient, reviving in the mathematics of the 18th century. One of its well-known representatives is the French philosopher and mathematician René Descartes. Okay, so this one is like your will is predetermined and you can't do anything about it. So I guess you just are. Interesting. The next one is Confucianism, circa the 5th century BC. Chinese philosopher Confucius tells us to cultivate a virtue called Ren, which is an altruistic sort of feeling one experiences when taking care of one's children, and parents. Okay. One of many ways Confucius explained virtue is this. Now, the man of perfect virtue, wishing to be established himself, seeks also to establish others. Wishing to be enlarged himself, he seeks also to enlarge others, to be able to judge of others by what is this is definitely showcasing in Eastern societies the thought of the collective we over the individual I. The next one is Moism. Moism appeared around the 5th century BC. The Moist proposed the concept of inclusive love, G&I, a kind of impartial care for fellow human beings that includes everyone in society. The meaning of life is in following the model called Fa, in which one psychological state of care and beneficial behavior that results from it are two sides of the same coin. The source of Moism is Mozi, a compilation of 71 books written by the Chinese philosopher Mozi. Yeah, I feel like this is another example of the Eastern philosophy of focusing on the we of society. The next is solipsism. I'm not sure. And this appeared around the 5th century BC. Solipsism is a theory that one can only be certain about one thing, one's mind to exist. Very individual. Solipsism was first recorded by the Greek sophist Georgius, who is reported to have said, 1. Nothing exists, nothing exists, nothing exists, nothing exists. 2. Even if something exists, nothing can be known about it. Nothing can be known about it. 3. Even if something could be known about it, knowledge about it can't be communicated to others. Interesting. The meaning of life, according to solipsism, can only be known by one's mind and not in relation to other beings. Some psychologists believe newborns to be initially solipsistic. Infants cry in the absence of parents nearby because they believe that when not visible, parents stop existing. Oh, that's so interesting. Eventually, children learn from observing others to reject solipsism. Okay. The next one is cynicism, which appeared around 4th century BC. I love this article. I love how they just explain it so well in just a few sentences. And then talk about when it appeared and the basis of the philosophy in just a few short sentences. This is great. The cynics. But anyway, cynicism says the cynics attempt to offer people the possibility of happiness and freedom from suffering in the age of uncertainty. The meaning of life is mental lucidity and self-sufficiency. To achieve self-sufficiency, a person must be free from external influences such as wealth, fame, and power. Democritus. 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 Okay. I like that one. To avoid suffering. That makes sense. That's the meaning of life. The next is Platonism. Platonism, like Plato, which appeared around the 4th century BC as well. For the Greek philosopher Plato, the meaning of life is the pursuit of knowledge. In his book, Apology, Plato quotes his teacher, Socrates, saying that the unexamined life is not worth living. In a nutshell, Platonism is the idea that there exist such things as pure forms, which are abstractions. An abstraction is something that neither exists in time nor space. It is completely non-physical, and yet is knowable. Knowledge of pure forms is the meaning of life. Daunting as it sounds, there is a shortcut of sorts. According to Plato, we are all born with all knowledge inside us, but we have to recall it or rediscover it, which is a concept called anamnesis. Plato's most influential work is The Republic, published around 375 BC. Okay, that one doesn't resonate with me. That can't be the meaning of life, rediscovering some abstract knowledge that we were all born with. I feel like, yeah, that gives life a purpose. Finding knowledge in the pure forms, but that's not the kind of purpose that I feel like I want to be chasing my whole life. I hope as you listen, you can see what philosophies resonate with you. The next is legalism. Legalism, which also appeared around 4th century BC. The legalists believed that humans are inherently selfish and cannot be trusted to behave morally. A strong government system can steer humans to continue behaving in their selfish ways, while the system works as a whole benefits from their work. The meaning of life is then in the acquisition of skills that can make a person's work valuable to the state, which in turn benefits society. The earliest legalist text is the Book of Lord Shang, written by the politician who raised Qin dynasty to its leading position in Asia. Okay, so this is like, your purpose is to have skills to benefit the society. Like, when I first started reading it, I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to contribute to a government system. But if the government system is to benefit society, that does feel meaningful. Okay, the next is Epicureanism. Appeared around 4th century BC. A Greek philosopher, Epicurus, was a materialist ancient Greek philosopher who offered that the meaning of life was in achieving sustainable pleasure, which leads to a state of tranquility next is quietism. Appeared around 3rd century BC. Quietists believe that philosophy as such has no answers to offer. Instead, its roles in pointing out linguistic confusions in the questions presented to philosophers. Thus, the question of the meaning of life assumes that we understand the meaning of the words meaning and life. Any attempt to pin down the meaning of either word reveals the meaningless of the question, and thus the meaning of life cannot be understood by asking such a question. Elements of quietism are found in both Eastern and Western philosophies, with Taoism known for its reluctance to use language, and Greek Pyrrhonism embracing nonverbal suspension of judgment. That one gets really into philosophy. If you think of philosophy as just asking yourself nonsensical questions. Not that it's nonsensical, but yeah, I guess if you can't understand or pin down the meaning of either word's meaning and life, then you can't answer the question, can you? The next is Aristotelianism. Circa 3rd century BC, the Greek philosopher Aristotle reminds us that no one lives a good life in order to achieve some other goal. Being a good person in itself is sufficient. Virtue is the goal. There is no list of virtues because we all know what they are. Oh, really? For example, it is a virtue to have friends. We do not need to be taught that. Virtue and the rules of ethics are not a theoretical concept according to Aristotle. A human being knows what is good. Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics is the best known work on his thinking. I like that one. I like that. No one lives a good life in order to achieve some goal. We intrinsically know what we're seeking. And I feel like that ties into doing what feels good without, which is the one I'm going back, without suffering. Because intrinsically we know we don't want to suffer. Seeking pleasure, avoiding suffering, being in a state of tranquility and freedom from fear. Being a good person in itself is sufficient. Those are the ones that have truly resonated with me so far. Stoicism, circa 3rd century BC. The Stoics want you to be free from desire for pleasure or fear of pain. Eschew emotion. How does one become dispassionate? Only through wisdom can one be free to act justly. A wise person becomes a sage through through rational action that does not violate the laws of nature. Hellenistic philosopher Zeno of Citium founded the Stoic school of philosophy in Athens. The only complete Stoic work we have are by Seneca, Epictetus, and Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. science's progress on self-transformation toward becoming a sage. I feel like this one, and what was the other one? That you had to figure out the pure forms, Plato, and Stoicism. It's like, it's not good enough to just like be and feel good. You have to have knowledge. And those don't resonate as much with me. As for the meaning of life, that's just playing a video game when you know, like, you're just trying to play it to have fun. But if the video game feels like a chore, and you're not enjoying it yourself. The next is modern humanism, circa the late 1300s. Humanism points out that humans themselves are responsible for the fate of humans in this world, thus promoting and helping other humans is the meaning of life. Okay. Subjectivism, circa the early 1600s. According to subjectivists, the meaning of life varies by individual, depending on one's mental state. The more a person achieves their own goals that are set by themselves, the more meaningful their life is. Subjectivists reject that there may be objective values in life that one should achieve, despite subjective goals. Subjectivism is attributed to René Descartes and his thought experiment, I think, therefore, I exist. I like this one too, because it's like, screw your pure forms and becoming a sage. I'm on my own path, and I can give myself my own meaning of life. Liberalism appeared in 1689. The liberalists trust that a person is naturally free to do without permission from any other person. Anyone attempting to limit freedoms must first prove that it is necessary. The meaning of life is then in protecting individual liberties against the political coercion that may or may not be justified. English philosopher and physician John Locke's work, The Two Treatises of Government, is foundational. The foundational text of liberal ideology. The next is Kantianism. Kantianism appeared in 1785. Kantianism proposes that every human action should be judged according to the universal maxim or principle. If an action violates a principle, then a person has failed their duty towards humans. That's rough. For example, if people followed the maxim, kill anyone you dislike, when applied universally, it would lead to the end of humanity. So the meaning of life is in fulfilling your duty to follow universal principles. What are the universal principles? The origin of Kantianism is German philosopher Immanuel Kant's book, The Critique of Pure Reason. Okay, not that many left. I'm really loving this article. Next is nihilism, which appeared in 1862. Nihilism, also called pessimism, is the belief that nothing nihilism is ancient, but among philosophers, German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, concept will to power is often most associated with it. I've heard of nihilism, and something I really like, and that really resonated with me, is optimistic nihilism, which is like, we're never gonna find the meaning of life, so we might as well just enjoy our lives and do what makes you feel happy. And I liked that. I feel like that relates back to some of the other ones that I was resonating with. The next one is pragmatism. Pragmatism circa the 1870s. Unlike many other schools of philosophy, the pragmatists have no official creed. In general, their view suggests that rather than truth about life, we should seek a useful understanding of life. The American philosopher and psychologist William James, one of pragmatism's main figures, argued that truth could be made but not sought. Is life worth living? James answered, maybe. The answer depends on what you do with your life. The meaning of life is then doing the thing that most contributes to the most human good over the longest course. That is bringing maximum value to humanity. There is hardly a main source of the pragmatist doctrine, but William James is one of the most prolific authors. William James on habit, will, truth, and the meaning of life covers the subject. The next is logical empiricism. Pardon all of my pronunciations through this video. Circa the 1920s, also called logical positivism. The idea of logical positivism is that anything that the only type of knowledge available to us is facts, scientifically verifiable and observable. Anything else is meaningless. The meaning of life can then only be derived from one's actual experience. We cannot know if life has a meaning, has a beyond meaning. We cannot know if life has a meaning beyond what we can see. Although the logical positivists did not have a leader, the Vienna Circle is the movement's most influential group. The next is existentialism. Circa the 1940s, the existentialists think that we all begin life with existential angst, a feeling of anxiety about the apparent meaninglessness of our lives. To find meaning in life, a person has to decide on their own values and take action to live according to them. The first existentialist text is German philosopher Martin Heidegger's work, Being and Time, which is an exploration of being that we ourselves are. I guess what I find hard about this one, and where was it? existentialism is like, first you gotta find your own meaning of life and then take action to live according to them, is that, for me, the search for the meaning of life is just, it's not even that it's too daunting that I want to do it. It's that I don't think the meaning of life is figuring out the meaning of life. I think it's just by being. If you think being is living, then what's the meaning of being? I don't know. Maximizing on good feelings. Okay. The last one is absurdism, which appeared in 1942. And absurdists ask, why would you even ask such a useless question? The question, destined to fail because of the conflict between the human mind that desperately seeks meaning and a world where everything falls short of having a finite, immutable meaning. Looking for meaning in life is a Sisyphean task. The more you search for one, the less you understand it. I like this. Sisyphus became a symbol of life's meaninglessness because in Greek mythology he was punished for his misdeeds by being forced to roll an immense boulder up a hill, only for it to tumble back every time he neared the summit. This went on for eternity. The absurdist French philosopher Albert Camus proposed that people should embrace the absurdity of our existence and then proceed to willfully live their lives. I like that. The defining work on absurdism is Albert Camus' work, The Myth of Sisyphus. And that's it. Okay, so they talk about the sources, which is good. And on this article, so I have the article linked in the description. All of my sources are always linked in my description. But there's also like this little infograph, and it's so cute. It goes over all of them and just has a few words. I am gonna read them even though this video has gone so much longer than I thought. But I love it because this topic is really interesting to me. Just to summarize all of the different schools of philosophy that I just read over. Natural pantheism, care for the nature. Theism, follow God's will. Taoism, follow the way, but no one can tell what it is. Determinism, accept that everything is predetermined. Confucianism, fulfill your duties to others. Moism, love people impartially. Solipsism, since only you exist, you know it. Cynicism, be self-sufficient. Hedonism, have pleasure now. Platonism, acquire maximum knowledge. Legalism, get practical skills. Epicureanism, free yourself from pain. Quietism, asking this question leads to more confusion. Aristotelianism, be a good person. Stoicism, be dispassionate, pursue perfection. life's meaning is different for each person. Liberalism, defend individual liberty. Catonianism, do as you would have others do your duty. Nihilism, do as you wish, life has no meaning. Pragmatism, bring more value to humans. Logical positivism, life has no meaning until you give it one. Existentialism, make decisions and be positive. Absurdism, stop trying to find meaning, just live. And then it's like, to be continued. We add a new philosophy every century. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. I hope you enjoyed. As you can hear, I love this topic and could read about it more, so if you like it, if you do like it too, I can